why most people lose control of their mood and money, and how to break the cycle. Do you find yourself struggling to control your emotions in the midst of life's challenges? Have you ever felt like your mood dictates your actions, especially when it comes to managing your money? You're not alone. Most people are trapped in a cycle where their emotional instability directly impacts their financial decisions. And before they know it, they are left with a constant sense of stress, regret, and uncertainty about their future. But what if I told you that you could break free from this destructive cycle? That you have the power to take control of your emotions and finances, making them work for you instead of against you. Today we will explore why most people lose control of their mood and money, and most importantly, how you can break that cycle, take charge of your life, and create lasting success. Stay tuned, because the transformation starts now. Emotional instability is one of the most overlooked but powerful forces that affects people's decision-making, particularly when it comes to managing money. Our emotions, how we feel, how we respond to situations, and how we process the world around us have an enormous impact on every area of our lives. And when those emotions are unstable or unpredictable, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to make sound decisions, whether personal, financial, or relational. Many of us have experienced moments where our emotions led us to make decisions that we later regretted. These decisions may have been rooted in impulse or fear, influenced by a temporary mood swing, or caused by a sense of uncertainty or inadequacy. For instance, when someone is feeling low or stressed, they may engage in emotional spending, seeking comfort in material items or experiences that offer temporary relief from their emotional state. It's a common reaction. People turn to shopping, eating, or other habits as a way of coping with feelings of frustration, sadness, or stress. While it may provide instant gratification or distraction, it does nothing to solve the underlying issue and often creates additional problems. The result? A sense of guilt or regret after the purchase, combined with the looming reality of an unbalanced budget or financial strain. On the flip side, when people are overly happy or excited, they can also be prone to reckless spending. We've all been there, celebrating a victory or an accomplishment with a little too much enthusiasm. While there's nothing inherently wrong with rewarding yourself for achievements, the lack of emotional balance can lead to overindulgence and the impulsive desire to buy things you don't really need or can't afford. When this behavior becomes a pattern, it turns into a destructive cycle that keeps repeating itself, weakening one's financial health over time. This instability doesn't stop with just financial decisions. Uncontrolled emotions can affect every aspect of life, from work to relationships. When people are feeling irritable, anxious, or overwhelmed, they might lash out at others or withdraw completely, which can strain their personal and professional connections. Poor communication, unhealthy habits, and a lack of emotional regulation can quickly derail relationships and prevent individuals from creating meaningful and sustainable success in their lives. But the issue goes deeper than just poor decision-making in moments of emotional vulnerability. Emotional instability can also cloud our vision of long-term goals, making it harder for us to prioritize. When we're constantly caught up in the highs and lows of our emotions, we lose sight of what really matters, like saving for the future or staying disciplined with our spending. Our emotions distract us from the disciplined mindset needed to secure our future and avoid financial pitfalls. The result? People fall into cycles of debt, anxiety, and regret as they attempt to manage their money without emotional stability to guide them. At the core of emotional instability is the inability to recognize and manage our feelings before they dictate our actions. Without emotional intelligence and the ability to master one's emotions, people are often at the mercy of their moods. Their emotions drive their decisions, making it difficult to think logically or make decisions that align with their long-term goals. This emotional volatility also creates a sense of chaos as there's no consistent framework for making decisions. One moment, a person might feel confident and capable of handling their finances, but the next, a wave of stress or uncertainty can knock them off course. Overcoming emotional instability is a gradual process, but is essential for achieving both financial and personal success. Developing emotional intelligence, being aware of and in control of one's emotions, helps create a stable foundation for better decision-making. Once we are in control of our emotions, we begin to make conscious choices that align with our goals and values, rather than reacting impulsively to external pressures or internal emotional turbulence. And when we begin to practice emotional regulation, we not only improve our financial health, but also our mental and relational well-being. In short, emotional instability is one of the most significant contributors to poor financial decision-making. It's often the invisible force driving individuals to overspend, make hasty decisions, and act against their best interests. By learning to master our emotions, we open the door to a more balanced, stable, and fulfilling life, one in which our money and mood work together to create a sense of purpose, direction, and long-term success. The environment we live in plays a powerful and often underestimated role in shaping our emotional and financial behavior. Every day we are surrounded by influences, people, media, habits, and cultural norms that silently mold our attitudes and decisions. These external factors don't just sit in the background, they actively affect how we think, feel, and act. When it comes to controlling our mood and money, the influence of our environment can either be a source of strength or a silent saboteur. The truth is, most people are not aware of just how much power their surroundings have over them until it's too late. Take relationships, for example. The people we associate with most frequently can either help us grow or pull us down. If you spend time around individuals who are constantly complaining, emotionally unstable, impulsive, or careless with money, it's very likely that you'll start picking up those same habits and attitudes. Even if unintentionally, human beings are naturally wired to mirror the emotions and behaviors of those around them. If your friends handle stress by spending recklessly or avoiding responsibility, you may start to normalize those behaviors in your own life. Before long, you find yourself caught in a cycle that isn't even yours. It's inherited from your environment. Media is another huge influence. We are constantly bombarded with images and messages that tell us what we should feel, how we should look, and what we should buy to be happy or accepted. Social media, television, and advertising often promote unrealistic standards and lifestyles, leading people to feel inadequate or left behind. This emotional pressure pushes many into making emotional decisions such as overspending to keep up with appearances or soothe the feelings of not being enough. It creates a false sense of need, making people chase happiness through material things, which never satisfy the root emotional emptiness. Beyond relationships and media, the physical space you occupy also matters. A cluttered, disorganized, or stressful environment can subconsciously fuel feelings of anxiety, frustration, or helplessness. On the flip side, a clean, calm, and organized space can promote focus, emotional clarity, and better financial habits. The environments we create or accept around us silently reinforce our daily patterns. You cannot expect clarity of mind in chaos, nor can you expect to make wise financial choices in a setting that breeds disorder or negativity. Even cultural and societal norms play a part. In some communities, there is a strong pressure to show success even if it isn't real. This forces individuals to spend money they don't have on things they don't need, just to prove a point or maintain a reputation. In doing so, they compromise both their emotional peace and their financial health. Others grow up in environments where financial literacy is not taught, where emotional expression is discouraged, or where short-term gratification is rewarded more than long-term planning. These early environmental influences shape our unconscious beliefs and habits, which are hard to break unless we intentionally choose to rewire them. The bottom line is that your environment either supports your goals or sabotages them. If you're trying to improve your emotional stability and financial discipline, but you're constantly surrounded by negativity, chaos, or people who drain your energy and distract you from your purpose, progress becomes incredibly difficult. Real transformation requires changing not just your internal mindset, but also your external surroundings. To gain control over your mood and money, you must first become aware of the environments you're immersed in. Ask yourself, are these surroundings helping me become who I want to be, or are they keeping me stuck in cycles I'm trying to break? When you begin to filter the voices around you, distance yourself from toxic influences, and intentionally create a space that nurtures discipline, peace, and focus, everything changes. Your emotions become steadier, your financial habits become clearer, and you gain the freedom to shape a life that aligns with your highest values, not one dictated by the noise of the world around you. One of the most powerful yet underrated forces in shaping a successful life, both emotionally and financially, is personal discipline. Without it, even the most talented individuals fall short, and even the most well-intentioned plans collapse. Discipline is the quiet force behind consistency, focus, and self-control. It is what keeps your emotions in check when you're tempted to react impulsively. It's what stops you from spending money on things you don't need just to soothe a bad mood. It's the invisible structure that protects your long-term goals from being sabotaged by short-term desires. And the truth is, most people don't lose control of their mood and money because they lack knowledge or intelligence. They lose control because they lack discipline. When you don't train yourself to be disciplined, your feelings become your master. You spend money when you're sad. You lash out when you're frustrated. You avoid responsibilities when you're overwhelmed. And every time you surrender to those emotions, you reinforce a habit of weakness. You tell your brain, my comfort is more important than my growth. Over time, this mindset builds a life full of regret, missed opportunities, and emotional instability. Lack of discipline is not just a bad habit, it's a slow poison. It convinces you that every day doesn't matter, that small decisions are insignificant, and that self-control can wait. But discipline is built in those small daily choices. It's forged in the moment you decide to say no to what feels good right now in favor of what is right and beneficial long term. Discipline is not something you're born with. It's a muscle you build. And like any muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. The more you practice showing up for yourself when it's uncomfortable, the easier it becomes to resist temptations that throw you off track. When you make a commitment to yourself, to wake up earlier, to stick to your budget, to pause before reacting emotionally, you start to reclaim control over your life. You're no longer a slave to mood swings or financial impulses. You start living with intention, not just reaction. A disciplined person doesn't ignore their emotions. They acknowledge them, but they don't allow them to drive every decision. They understand that a bad mood doesn't justify a bad decision. They know that wealth isn't built through inspiration, but through repetition. Daily, boring, consistent repetition. Saving money when it's not exciting, showing up for work when motivation is low. Having hard conversations when avoiding them would be easier. That's the price of freedom, emotional and financial. Most people want the results of discipline, but they don't want to pay the price. They want peace without doing the internal work. They want financial freedom without budgeting, planning, or sacrificing. But discipline doesn't work like that. It gives back only what you put in. The undisciplined life is ruled by emotion, by distractions, and by the opinions of others. In that state, you're constantly reacting, constantly putting out fires, and constantly making excuses for why you're not where you want to be. You might blame your circumstances, your upbringing, your job, or even other people. But the truth is, your future won't change until you change. And that change begins with discipline. It's the most loving thing you can give yourself. It's the foundation of all progress. And it's the doorway to stability, both emotionally and financially. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And the only way to consistently respond with wisdom, patience, and clarity is by training yourself in discipline. Practice it when no one is watching. Practice it when it's hard. Practice it when you don't feel like it. Because those moments of discipline will become the bricks that build your character, your mindset, your bank account, and your peace of mind. In the end, discipline isn't about punishment or deprivation. It's about alignment. Bringing your daily choices into harmony with your highest values and your long-term vision. When you develop the discipline to do what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, you become unshakable. Your emotions may fluctuate, but they won't control you. Your finances may be tested, but they won't destroy you. That is the power of discipline. It gives you control in a world that constantly tries to take it away. And once you have it, you begin to live not by default, but by design. Emotional spending is one of the most common ways people lose control of both their mood and their money. It's not just about shopping or spending recklessly. It's about trying to soothe emotional discomfort with financial decisions. Every time someone buys something they don't need to feel better, distract themselves, or fill a void, they are emotionally spending. This behavior is often triggered by stress, loneliness, boredom, anxiety, sadness, or even excitement. It provides a momentary high, a quick fix, a sense of control, but like all emotional responses that aren't rooted in wisdom, it comes at a cost. That cost isn't just financial. It's emotional as well, because the underlying issues remain unresolved. The problem with emotional spending is that it doesn't actually solve anything. Buying a new outfit doesn't cure insecurity. Ordering takeout because you're stressed doesn't reduce anxiety. Upgrading your phone won't fix loneliness. But in the moment, it feels like relief. That's the trap. Emotional spending is a coping mechanism that creates a false sense of satisfaction. It gives people the illusion that they are rewarding themselves or making progress, when in reality, they are often digging a deeper emotional and financial hole. Worse, the aftermath of emotional spending is usually regret. Once the temporary emotional relief wears off, the consequences show up: overdrawn accounts, credit card debt, buyer's remorse, or guilt. And that guilt can trigger even more negative emotions, leading to another round of emotional spending. This creates a cycle. Feel bad, spend to feel better, regret the spending, feel bad again, and repeat. Over time, this pattern can destroy a person's sense of stability and self-respect. It keeps them emotionally volatile and financially vulnerable. Many people don't even realize they are caught in this cycle because it's normalized in society. Phrases like treat yourself, retail therapy, or you deserve it are marketed constantly, encouraging impulsive buying as a form of self-care. But true self-care isn't about indulgence. It's about responsibility, clarity, and healing. Real self-care asks, what do I truly need to feel whole and stable? Not what can I buy to avoid what I'm feeling. To break free from emotional spending, people need to develop emotional awareness. That means learning to pause and ask themselves why they want to buy something. Is it a genuine need or an emotional response? Are they trying to fill a void or avoid a feeling? This self-reflection interrupts the automatic habit of spending and replaces it with mindfulness. It allows space to process the emotion without using money as a bandage. Additionally, it's important to develop healthier emotional outlets. If you're feeling overwhelmed, call someone you trust instead of opening an online shopping app. If you're anxious, go for a walk, journal, pray, or sit in silence. If you're lonely, engage in a hobby or serve someone else. The goal isn't to suppress emotions, it's to redirect them into actions that bring actual peace and resolution rather than temporary distraction. Over time, this trains the mind to respond to emotional discomfort with strength and self-mastery rather than impulse and escape. Financial boundaries are also essential. Set limits for yourself and stick to them. Create a budget that reflects your values, not your moods. Track your spending and identify patterns. Notice when you're most vulnerable to emotional purchases and create a plan to navigate those moments differently. Having accountability, whether through a mentor, a friend, or a written financial plan, can help you stay grounded when your emotions try to pull you off track. Ultimately, freedom from emotional spending is about regaining control. It's about realizing that your emotions do not have to dictate your financial decisions. It's about understanding that money is a tool, not a therapist. When you develop the emotional maturity to sit with discomfort instead of avoiding it, and the financial wisdom to manage your resources with clarity, you begin to break the cycle. You learn that peace doesn't come from purchases. It comes from discipline, healing, and alignment between your heart and your habits. When you no longer use money to manage your mood, both your emotional and financial lives begin to stabilize. You make choices with intention. You feel empowered rather than reactive. And most importantly, you begin to build a future based on strength, not survival. That's when lasting transformation begins. Environment is not just where you live, it's what lives around you and within you. It's the people you associate with, the energy you absorb daily, the conversations you entertain, the content you consume, and even the spaces you allow yourself to function in. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to maintain control over their mood and their money is because their environment is constantly working against them. You cannot expect growth, clarity, peace, and discipline to thrive in an atmosphere full of confusion, distraction, and negativity. Just like a seed can't grow in toxic soil, a person can't flourish in a toxic environment. Most people underestimate the power of their surroundings. They keep negative people close out of habit, familiarity, or guilt. They stay in draining environments because change feels uncomfortable. They consume chaotic, dramatic, or materialistic content all day and then wonder why they feel anxious, dissatisfied, or financially pressured. Your environment shapes your mood before you even realize it. Walk into a room where people are complaining, gossiping, or talking about failure, and you'll feel your energy shift, even if you don't say a word. Similarly, spending time in environments that encourage you, challenge you to grow, and hold you accountable will naturally elevate your mindset and habits. Your environment either pushes you forward or pulls you backward. There is no neutral ground. If you're constantly around people who lack discipline, overspend, or react emotionally, you'll begin to mirror their behavior. If you're in a space where chaos is normal, peace will start to feel strange. That's why it's so important to audit your surroundings, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Ask yourself, does this space feed my focus or drain it? Do these relationships add to my peace or subtract from it? Is the noise I'm exposed to helping me grow or keeping me stuck? One of the hardest truths to accept is that sometimes you have to separate from the familiar to protect your future. This doesn't mean you hate the people you grew up with or cut off everyone who disagrees with you. It means you're choosing to be intentional. You're choosing growth over comfort. You're choosing to be around people who stretch your vision instead of shrink your potential. That might mean spending less time with friends who always want to spend money but never want to invest in their purpose. It might mean walking away from conversations that always circle around negativity and drama. It might even mean redesigning your home environment to reduce stress and increase clarity, clearing out clutter, limiting screen time, or creating a space for quiet reflection and planning. You can't build emotional and financial stability in a chaotic environment. Your surroundings will either distract you or discipline you. They'll either nurture your goals or normalize your excuses. That's why successful people are obsessed with their environments. They protect their peace. They curate their circle. They design their spaces with purpose, not because they're better than anyone, but because they understand that transformation is not just internal, it's environmental. The right environment gives your discipline a place to grow. The wrong environment suffocates it. The content you consume is also part of your environment. What are you feeding your mind every day? Is it encouraging you to be calm, focused, and wise, or is it pushing you to compare, react, and spend? Social media, music, podcasts, and even the news all shape your inner environment. If your feed is filled with chaos, outrage, and unrealistic lifestyles, it will influence your thoughts without your permission, and those thoughts will drive your emotions, and those emotions will lead to impulsive choices, financially and personally. That's why guarding your environment is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When you begin to take control of your environment, you start taking control of your life. Your mood stabilizes because you're not constantly surrounded by drama. Your financial decisions become clearer because you're not influenced by materialistic noise. Your purpose becomes louder because the distractions get quieter. It all starts with intention. You don't have to fix everything overnight. Start by changing one part of your environment. Remove one source of chaos. Add one source of peace. Distance yourself from one draining voice. Invite one uplifting one. Small changes compound into major transformations when done consistently. If you truly want to break the cycle of emotional instability and poor financial habits, your environment must change. You can't just change your behavior, you have to change what influences your behavior. Your environment is always speaking to you. Make sure it's speaking life, not confusion. Make sure it's pushing you towards self-betrayal, not self-destruction. Make sure it reflects the future you want, not the past you're trying to escape. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your environment. If your environment is messy, your mind will be too. If your environment is careless with time and money, you will struggle to be disciplined with them. But if your environment is focused, structured, supportive, and peaceful, your habits will begin to align. And when your habits align, your results follow. That's when the cycle breaks. That's when real growth begins. Most people were never taught how to manage emotions or money. These two areas, emotional intelligence and financial literacy, are rarely addressed together, yet they are deeply connected and often learned the hard way, through failure, regret, and painful consequences. What makes this even more challenging is that many individuals are raised in environments where unhealthy emotional patterns and poor money habits are passed down through generations. They grow up watching people react impulsively to stress, suppress their feelings, or avoid accountability. At the same time, they watch financial decisions being made emotionally rather than strategically, spending money to cope with pain, borrowing without planning, or living paycheck to paycheck without vision or control. So they inherit confusion, not clarity. When someone is emotionally unstable and financially uneducated, they are at the mercy of life circumstances. Every unexpected challenge becomes a crisis. Every emotional low turns into a financial mistake. They don't know how to process what they feel, so they spend or escape. They don't know how to manage what they earn, so they live in a constant cycle of earning and exhausting. And because they don't understand why they're doing it, because no one taught them, they repeat the same patterns over and over, believing this chaos is normal. The lack of education in emotional intelligence shows up in how people handle pressure, conflict, disappointment, and temptation. Without tools for managing stress, many default to avoidance, anger, impulsiveness, or isolation. Without understanding their own emotions, they become reactive instead of reflective. They speak without thinking. They act without considering long-term consequences. This behavior doesn't stay isolated to relationships. It spills into financial decisions. Emotional immaturity and money mismanagement often walk hand in hand. A person who doesn't know how to sit with discomfort will try to buy their way out of it. A person who fears being alone might spend money to impress others and feel accepted. A person who's insecure might use money to appear more successful than they are. At the same time, the lack of financial education means people don't know how money works. They don't understand budgeting, saving, investing, or the difference between assets and liabilities. They were taught how to earn, maybe even how to spend, but not how to manage or multiply. As a result, they're constantly reacting to financial emergencies instead of preparing for them. They may earn a good income, but have nothing to show for it. They may want to build wealth, but don't know where to start, so they look for quick fixes. Get-rich-quick schemes, lottery tickets, payday loans, or credit cards to solve problems that require long-term discipline and knowledge. One of the greatest dangers is that emotional instability can override financial wisdom. You can know what to do and still not do it if your emotions are undisciplined. You can have a budget, a plan, and goals, but if you're triggered emotionally by stress, envy, fear, or loneliness, you'll make decisions that sabotage your progress. That's why simply learning financial principles isn't enough. You also need to learn emotional regulation. You need the maturity to pause, reflect, and respond with wisdom instead of impulse. The painful truth is that many people feel ashamed of not knowing. They feel embarrassed to admit they don't understand money. They're afraid to confront their emotions, so they pretend. They act like everything is fine, while internally they are overwhelmed. They distract themselves with entertainment, social media, and temporary pleasures, hoping things will somehow fix themselves. But silence doesn't solve what education could. Avoidance doesn't heal what understanding can transform. To break free from this cycle, people must become students again, not of the system, but of their own life. They must study their emotional triggers. They must learn their financial patterns. They must ask hard questions. Why do I respond this way when I'm upset? Why do I feel the need to spend when I'm insecure? Why do I avoid looking at my bank account? Why am I still stuck, even though I earn more now than I did before? These questions open the door to healing and growth. Education begins with awareness. You can't change what you're not willing to acknowledge. Once you realize that your emotional and financial struggles are not because you're weak or broken, but because you were never taught the right tools, you can begin to release the shame and embrace the responsibility. You can start seeking answers, read books, listen to wise mentors, take courses, watch content that teaches, not just entertains. Learn how to process your emotions without reacting. Learn how to manage your money with purpose. The information is available. It's the willingness that makes the difference. Also, you must be patient with yourself. You didn't develop these patterns overnight, and you won't undo them overnight either. But every time you choose to learn instead of escape, to pause instead of panic, to plan instead of react, you're breaking the cycle. You're building a new foundation, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you. Because once you learn, you can teach. Once you break free, you can show others how to do the same. You don't have to be a product of what you weren't taught. You can rise above it. You can become emotionally wise and financially stable, not because it was handed to you, but because you chose to pursue it. The choice is yours. To stay in the dark or to seek the light of understanding. Once you decide to learn what you were never taught, everything changes. Your mood begins to stabilize, your money starts to work for you, your confidence grows, and most importantly, you stop surviving and start living with purpose and power. Because knowledge is not just power, it is freedom. Emotional and financial freedom begins the moment you stop blaming what you didn't know and start seeking what you must learn. That's how you break the cycle forever.